Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books, where we review books of every genre, looking for the best of fun, escapist books. And today we're doing a fantasy book. Normally I hold it up, but I don't have it because it was just a digital copy, so instead I'm just going to flash a picture of it on the screen. It's called The Wizard's Butler by Nathan Lowell. It is a light fantasy. I would actually, it's almost so light fantasy to almost not be as much fantasy. It's more of a slice of life type of book. There's no action, no really serious drama. There's a little bit of drama, but it's more, most of the book is spent on just, this is, your daily life. You do the laundry and you make the meals and you make a bunch of appointments and kind of thing with just an unusual circumstance. So it was very different, a cozy book for people who like playing The Sims or farming simulations or things like that, where it's kind of that repetitive, relaxing type of atmosphere. That's kind of what this book is. This is a very laid-back book. Okay, so the plot. You have three threads of plot weaving through the story. The first one, the main one at the beginning of the book, probably for the first half of the book, is you have somebody who is hired to be a butler in a mansion, and he has never been a butler before. So he is learning all the how to be a butler, how to buttle. I don't even know what you would use that as a verb, but how do you get your uniform? So he gets his uniform with all the the white gloves and everything, and how do you do the table settings, and where do you find the food and in the pantry, and just things on. He is learning his way around his new job. And so you have almost the entirety, first 200 pages are about that thread. And then it continues a little bit lighter in the second half of the book. The other thread is, there are two others. One is the only source of conflict or drama in this story is that the owner of the mansion is an old man in his 80s, and his niece really wants to have him declared incompetent due to dementia and have him kicked out so she can inherit everything. And so he is kind of maneuvering to try and prevent that, and at the same time, kind of stick it in her ear, so to speak, as far as playing up problems for her, to basically like, oh yeah, I'm totally so sick, I'm in a wheelchair and don't remember your name, even though for the most part he does. Although it's not completely acting, he does have some problems, which brings us to our third thread. This is the fantasy thing, not the only fantasy thing, but the main fantasy thing. Our main character, our butler, discovers that his boss, the owner of the mansion, has a curse, and it is slowly draining his memories or his sense of present. So he sometimes play acts that he doesn't remember his niece, but sometimes he doesn't actually remember his niece. And so the butler kind of sees the clues of, is it happening, is it not happening, what's going on there, and how that all plays out. So one thread of it is dealing with that magical curse. How does that resolve? So in the end, you've got those three plot threads. So things I liked. I did like that laid-back, cozy atmosphere that was just the slice of life. I don't think I've ever done a fantasy quite that, pastoral, that is very much just a day-to-day life. Is kind of, I think, a newish thing in publishing, to have that kind of thing, within the past 10 years, to have books like that. So it's not one that I'm very familiar with, although I've had a couple of books so far that I've called cozy fantasies because they're not huge drama. This one would be the most extreme that I've ever done in that sense, and I liked that. the logical revealing of the magic going on. So our main character is the butler, and everything in the story is from his point of view. And so he doesn't start out believing in magic. He's not magical. He's never been exposed to magic. This takes place in the modern day with computers and the internet and cars and everything like that. So he's just kind of like, magic? Sure. You know, because the niece who wants to take over, it tells him, oh yeah, he thinks he's a wizard. And the butler is thinking that this is part of the dementia, not a reality. And so a whole bunch of really subtle things start changing his mind. And that's kind of a fun revealing of the situation to him. Kind of, he's like suspicious. Is that really what's going on there? Or am I imagining that? You know, kind of thing as this goes along. So, like I said, that can be fun. I enjoyed that. Our wizard character. So the person that is in charge of the mansion, he's a fun character. So he has a sense of humor. He is trying to stick it to his niece. And as part of that, he plays up his, dementia, and he has a sense of humor. And I liked him. I liked him as a character. You don't want him to die at the end or succumb to the curse or anything like that. I like him as a character. Our butler character, getting to things that I don't like as much, I mostly like. This is kind of in between. Not saying I really liked it or really didn't like. So my main problem with our main character would actually just be the first chapter. So the first introduction to our main character, I felt like did our main character a disservice. It portrayed him in a kind of a sleazy way. Like, he comes up to apply for the job, and the niece is sitting there, and he is checking her out in kind of an inconsiderate way. And, it seems like just not really a nice character. But almost immediately as he becomes a butler, that all disappears. He is ultra polite. Sir and ma'am, every other word, to an extreme extent. And it kind of felt a weird transition to me between what you saw in the first chapter to what you see in the rest of the book. Now, I like him as a character, generally speaking, and I liked that he was super polite and courteous, holding doors for everybody and, being considerate toward women and all that kind of thing. But it just didn't fit with the first chapter, I didn't feel like. And so it was kind of too abrupt, I felt, to go from one character to the way he's written to another character. So that was the main thing in this book that I didn't like. Once you get past that first chapter, though, and if you absorb the character from that part on, then it's consistent, and I thought a likable character. Another silly thing that I will put in my dislike is it talked about food a lot. And to the point that I'm sitting there, I'm reading this and going, I'm hungry. Wow. And it was kind of funny. So it mentioned him making foods. And he's making oatmeal, which generally speaking is not one of those foods that you're like, oh, oatmeal, I really want oatmeal. But he was like, and you put apples in it and cinnamon and, several other ingredients. I'm like, that's sounding good. Like, it described it a little too well. And it to the point where, I'm not a person who generally likes poached eggs, but they kept talking about poached eggs, so I had to go make myself a poached egg just because I started craving it. So things like that. So don't read this book, especially the first half, while you're hungry, because you'll want to go eat. That was kind of funny. So the last thing I'll say on the dislike, and again, this isn't a huge dislike, just a minor quirk, would probably be the slower pace. And this isn't necessarily a negative, but be aware that it is slower paced. If you're looking for adrenaline, action, new things happening all the time, this isn't the book for you. It takes a slow ramp up to really get to the drama and the action and the interesting things that happen towards the later half of the book. So the first half can be slow. Yes, I would say just be aware of that rather than saying it's truly a negative. So overall, I loved the book. I really enjoyed it. In fact, I started it before I finished the last one, the mystery that I had read before, and I didn't enjoy the mystery They Who Soar, I was getting frustrated reading it. And I picked up this other book and started it, and I kept being drawn to that. Like, I want to read that book, not this book. I want to read that book. So I did finish the other one before I finished this one, but it was a little bit challenging to do that because I kept wanting to read this book, and I really enjoyed it. Like, this was one of those sit down and really want to keep doing it. I read it on my phone, so I kept wanting to pick up my phone and read that and not do other things that I probably should have been doing. So I really liked it. It was, despite the pacing, despite how lack of action was going on, it was really enjoyable. I highly recommend it. So 2 thumbs way up. All right, part 2. What I'm going to do next, I'm going to do a classic, Ivanhoe. So I've never read this. I vaguely think that it is an action adventure story that takes place during the Crusades. I think knights in shining armor is kind of medieval era, but beyond that I really don't know much about it. So I thought, let's do something, a classic out there, and this is the one I picked. So I hope you will join me for that. Oh, I guess I should say the author. It's Sir Walter Scott is the author. Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you'll join me next time.